Hey, what's going on guys? Zedd here, bringing you another Soul Calibur 6 video. Today's video, I'm going to just go over movement. I guess you could call it a movement guide, but realistically movement isn't terribly difficult in Soul Calibur, but there's a bunch of different mechanics and things that players may not know about, or things that people may not understand. I know it comes up in my streams a lot, so we'll just get this out of the way, and so I can reference it going forward. Now, as a precursor, some of you may have come across a video made by a player named Signia who goes over advanced movement techniques. It's like over 2 hours long. I want to tell you right now that a good chunk of that is unfortunately out of date, at least at the time of this video. And this is season 2. That was made back in season 1. The reason why is they took out a couple key mechanics and they made sidestepping less safe, or rather punishable, I should say. Whereas you could make sidestepping safe and it would avoid some stances altogether, such as 2B, etc. So a lot of what used to be is not anymore, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It makes movement a bit more intuitive. There's no weird movement cancel gimmicks other than one that we'll talk about. And I'll just try to discuss how movement works and the frames associated with it. So, first up, it's worth mentioning that every character in Soul Calibur has different backstep and sidestep distances, speeds, and of course animations, and then their hitbox also determines their ability to backstep and sidestep. So, for example, a character like Aswell or Siegfried or Astaroth, their movement is quite poor. In general, backstepping, but also sidestepping, you'll notice their backsteps are quite small. On the flip side, characters like Cervantes, Ivy, Haomaru, Tira, and Hilde, they have incredible backsteps that cover a lot of space very quickly. And then in terms of side movement, characters like Cassandra and Xianghua, their sidestep moves speed is incredibly high, and every other character sort of fills in the gaps, right? There's no real metric. There's no easy way to tell what is a good and well, it's easy to tell what's a good and bad movement character, but it's hard to tell everything in between, so you probably don't have to worry about it. Anyway, I want to get that out of the way first. So what I demonstrate isn't going to work with every character, but I'm going to show you how you can test how good your character's backstep is. So, in terms of how movement works in Soul Calibur, if you don't already know, you can move in all 8 cardinal directions, so as in all sides of a clock. However, you can't really step diagonally. That doesn't really work. It's not something that you would want to do. It just sort of becomes a sidestep forward step. So typically when you're discussing movement, it's more in up, down, left, or right, or 4, 6, 8, and 2. As a note, what you'll see in sort of higher level or competitive play, as competitive as online can be during these desperate times, is you'll see a lot of players step and then guard thereafter. The reason why is it's just simply to make the movement snappy, and also in case of lingering or tracking hitboxes, they can block and not get punished for it. What I mean by snappy is if you're just moving like this, I'll call this mash stepping for comparison's sake, or you're side walking or back walking, this actually leaves a bit of a lingering hitbox, and you can actually tell sort of by the animation. So using Cervantes as our example here, because his movement is awesome. Even just notice when I'm stepping versus when I'm walking, notice what his right arm is doing. So when I walk, it's off to the side, right? Whereas when I'm stepping, it's actually more closer to his center of mass, so his hitbox is actually a little smaller. For those who maybe don't know, hitboxes and hurtboxes in Soul Calibur work in sphere shapes, not boxes like 2D fighting games, so this actually matters a lot. Same with mash stepping. I know it's step, but the point is it's actually leaving a bit of a residual hitbox behind me, just like walking. So if you're trying to move with evasive purpose, I highly recommend you be very snappy about it. So step G, step G, step G, step G, step G, and just get comfortable with that. Same with backwards. Okay, so snappy movement is greater than sort of lingering movement for the most part. There are some reasons why you would want to walk, repositioning, or the fact that you can block from a walk right away, right? So you can see here, if I'm already walking, just boom, I can tap G and we're in there, whereas a step has a delay. Getting into that, the frame data of movement Sidestep is 12 frames from the start to the time you can block. And yes, there is a way to sort of do a small step like this. Just know that it's barely going to avoid anything. It's almost like an irrelevant step. There are a few exceptions to this, but as a rule of thumb, don't think that you're going to avoid jack all by doing that, and it actually still is unsafe anyway. I couldn't tell you the frames because it depends on how fast you cancel it, but not really a relevant movement tactic anymore. This is an example of something that was in that aforementioned video. And backwards is typically 14 frames. I say typically because what you're able to do is if you cancel your backstep movement, you can make it safer by approximately just 2 frames. But I would say majority of the time, just assume that backstep is about 14 frames to 16 frames if we assume not a perfect block input. Okay, so 14. Now, how do you actually move? Now that we've kind of gotten the understanding of the numbers and the frames and how it all works. Well, basically, forward movement is very fast. You can break into a forward run immediately. So let me just pick Maxi here. You can see him a little better given the webcam placement. If I tap forward, he sort of breaks into a run and it takes a little bit to get going, right? But if I double tap forward, you'll see that it actually breaks into a run a lot faster, right? So by a lot faster, I mean like a couple frames, but it is noticeable. So there is that aspect of it as well. But other methods of movement are canceling. And canceling is something you can do off of basically any direction. So something you'll see or hear people talk about is called a box step. We're going to start here. A box step is a back step into a side step. Backstep side step looks like this. Now you'll notice when you're practicing this that you can actually cancel your backstep at any time and almost do like a mini backstep, right? Or you can do your full backstep into sidestep, rinse and repeat. This is really important because there are some situations where you want to do a backstep sidestep to avoid like maybe stubbier horizontals and then sidestep slightly slower verticals. And this movement style is actually incredibly good just in some matchups in general, and against some characters' pressure. This really shuts them down and they have a really hard time dealing with it. So again, a box step is either 4-2 or 4-8, depending on what side of the screen you're on. The directions don't change. Likewise, if you want to cancel a back step forward, that's a bit trickier, but you have to basically do 4-3-6. Now this one is a little less necessary because backstep into front movement, you'll see here, it's quite slow, right? From the moment I tap 4 to tapping 6, there's quite a delay. Okay, so again, just from Maxi perspective, right? See how long I'm waiting to go forward? But if I do 4-3-6, like that. The reason why this is better, and the reason why it's faster, is because remember, you can cancel backstep with sidestep. 3 is a sidestep. So by tapping 4-3-6, I'm able to cancel my backstep and go forward faster than just doing 4-6. Okay? Now, this isn't all that relevant, so again, 4-6, 4-6, 4-6, 4-6 versus 4-3-6. Okay. Now, if you do 4-2-6, that's fine too, but the thing is you're wasting frames by going sideways, as you can see here. But it definitely works. Alright, so that's what we call a box step, and that's a bit of a understanding of canceling backstep into front step. In terms of sidestep, sidestep is actually more limiting than backstep, in that you actually can't box step starting with the sidestep properly. So you actually have to fully commit to the sidestep no matter what. If you do break out into like a backstep, like if you try to do double tap side or whatever, it's not that evasive. It's not that effective, unfortunately. Like I said, they took away all the fun stuff in movement in basically Season 2. So try not to get too fancy with it. With that said, you can still cancel sidestep into forward movement. Okay? So keep that in mind as well. The last big thing about movement in Soul Calibur 6 is what we would call a backstep cancel. Now, if you're a Tekken player or you're familiar with the phrase, this would be the equivalent of Korean backdash or KBD, where in Tekken they are able to cover a lot of ground backwards by quickly doing a specific input on the controller. Calibur has something in the same vein, although it isn't quite as effective, and it's more so to make backstep snappier, as we've been saying, as opposed to lingering. So, just to give you Cervantes as an example, like I said, his movement is one of the best in the game. If I just tap backwards and then I try to guard, okay, and then I'm going to backstep again, it's a little slow, right? It's a little slow. Same with Maxi, right? It's a little slow. Instead, what you can do is wait until the backdash is almost all done, tap G, and backstep again. So that would look like, so again, regular, or the cancel. Oops. There we go. Do you see how the recovery time of me trying to backdash again was sort of canceled, right? By guarding. I'm able to do sort of a double take a lot faster. Like that. Oops. Okay. And I'm not a Cervantes main or anything, but if you refine this, you could start whizzing across the screen like crazy. Okay, so that's what we call a backdash cancel. And again, what makes this difficult is every character is different. And that's what makes it really frustrating. Some characters are better at it than others. Some characters don't even need it, in that some characters are better off just walking. Some characters are better off just backstep blocking because they don't even cover enough distance with the cancel to make it worth it. And this takes a little bit of practice, again, because every character is different. I would say you want to aim for 2 revolutions, so 1, 2, or like 1, 2 backstep block. But if you can try to go all the way across the screen using backdash cancel, then you're probably pretty safe to say. It's probably safe to say that you know what you're doing, right? That's basically as complex as movement gets in Calibur. One of 2 tests, I'll show you both, that you can do to test your character's backstep or hitbox related things is something I like to call the Maxi test. It's very simple. So you simply set Maxi on 2 players' side, recording 1B, and then after 1B you do A and K. That looks like this. 1B, A, K, and then just have him block. The way you know if your character's movement is really good is by seeing how close you can get to Maxi before you can avoid both of these hits while backdash canceling. So I'll give you an example with Cervantes. So I'm standing basically right on Maxi's toes, okay? He's gonna hit me with the 1B, and if I backstep cancel properly, I will actually be able to avoid everything that he does. Okay, so like that. And if I was sluggish to it, okay, if I was sluggish to it, by everything he does, I'm referring to the 1BAK, to be clear. Right? Theoretically, if you were slow, you might block the K, right? Right? Or if you were late, you might actually get hit by the A, stuff like that. So just getting better with it, you should be able to do that. And even if you just want to practice it with Cervantes, because as you can see, he's a character who can do it, just to sort of get the rhythm and understand what you're doing. It's very easy with Cervantes, though. So I'm showing you the best option, and many characters can't even do it, but it's just an option. The other one that's a little more specific in terms of, or it's even more specific rather, in terms of characters, is 2B. And 2B has an interesting thing where if she does 2-2K K or 2-2K hold, you can backstep one but not both. So let's look at the move real quick. This is 2-2KK. Okay, this is -12 on block. No problem. If you try to step it, you get hit. If you try to backstep, you get hit. If she charges it, sorry. Okay, if she charges it, you can interrupt it, but that's quite difficult, right? Like so. You can't sidestep it at all. But some characters can backstep it. Okay? Some characters can backstep it. Now this list is even smaller than the characters who can avoid Maxi 1B AK, but this is a good thing to explore and practice. So for example, boom, I just avoided his hill death. One more time, boom. And what you're looking for is you would want to react to either a delay or the charging animation, or if you're really late, looking for the blue sparks like that. Because you can see, even if I wait quite a while, right, I can still avoid it. So that would be too late. Like that. Alright, so again, it looks easy. It looks, you know, simple, right? Like, well, what do you mean? Like, this should be universal. Definitely not, right? Definitely not. So I'll give you another example. And then I'll give you an example of how to do some creative labbing. So you can see there, I still have to block this as Xianghua most of the time if I'm standing right up to her. Sorry, that was a bad example. There we go. But a character like Siegfried, it's a really unique option. In that, if he tries to backstep here, he can't. But what he can do is that. So what he can do is do 4-4 B plus K, and that avoids the move. Okay. Versus just regular 4-4 or 4B plus K and backstep. Now this isn't something I've practiced, so I'm not as proficient at it, but you can see, so if you have a backstep kind of move, you can try to do that as well. This is a neat little just tidbit, but hopefully that gives you some examples of things you can try. As I had mentioned, Siegfried has bad movement, so I'm going to close the video out by showing you the difference between a character like Tira and a character like Siegfried. Just so you can really see the difference between why backstep speed matters. Again, sidestep, a little more universal to be honest, but in general. So here we go, Jolly Tira, backstep cancel. Even Jolly Tira backwards movement, watch this. She's out of there, right? She's gone, okay? Siegfried? Let's count, okay? So we're both starting in the middle, sort of on the back foot is on the lines of these two squares, okay? Let's see how many times it takes for me to go 3 squares with Siegfried. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10. Tira, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To have that back foot on the back line of 3 squares. So 3 less back steps with Jolly Tira than Siegfried. Okay? So there you have it. That's basically movement. Again, just as a recap, box step is 4-2. You can do this right away. To cancel backstep into forward step, I suggest doing 4-3-6. Sidestep can go into forward movement. Sidestep can't really go into backwards movement. Try to be snappy with your movement in general. Don't mash it like this or walk like this. Not great. I will mention this though, walking does close the distance towards the opponent. You'll notice if I do this, I'm actually going to end up closer to Tira. Fun little fact if you didn't already know. And yeah, try to practice your backstep canceling. Even with Siegfried it is relevant, but you can see that he's got some cinder blocks on his feet. And yeah, forward movement can be canceled right away at any time. This is really important for characters closing the gap against like Ivy, Mina, Siegfried, etc. Right? So there you have it. Honestly, that's as difficult as movement gets in Caliber, so have fun practicing your backdash canceling. Let me know in the comments if you have any further questions, but hopefully this gets you started and gives you an idea as to what movement is all about. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.